Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second edition of our seminar series here at the Center for Leadership and Empowerment. Okay, and let's say welcome to all our guests, all our participants from the university, but also from across the UK. Welcome to this particular session. As you all know, today's session is on entrepreneurial leadership or skill-based analysis. Interestingly, our speaker for today is also the director for the center. So I'm going to ask, the director of the center to say a few words of introduction, and after that, I'm going to, talk about a little bit about his background, and then we'll hand over back again to the director of the center, Professor Christian Harrison, to take us through his presentation. And after that, there'll be room for questions. And hopefully it's going to be, a very rich and insightful session. Please bear with us. Okay. Right. So without further ado, Professor Christian Harrison, can you just give us a word of introduction, please?
Okay. Thank you very much, Lawrence. And apologies first for my voice. My voice is not usually like this. I think my voice is quite loud, but I think it's better now. I was teasing some people, like, it's not why I understand why the likes of Adele, they cancel their concerts, or Beyonce when they lose their voice. I'm like, did I cancel this? Well, like, no, we can't cancel this today because I really need to talk. So I'm happy that now you can hear me because I lost my voice yesterday, but of course it's better now. So if you struggle to hear me, please be here with me. There's really nothing much I can do apart from try and drink some water and take some strepsils as well. But it's great to have everybody here today. And I'm so happy that, thanks Lawrence for organizing this, and everybody that has been, okay, your voice is never loud, it's always critically measured, and good to hear. Thanks Martin for that. And it's great to have all of you here today from different parts of the world. I'd like to say thank you. I can see Jibola that is here. Special thanks to Jibola, because Jibola is logging in from America at the moment. So we have a lot of people, not just from the UK, and we also have Shola here as well. So a lot of people from different parts of the world. So it's great to have everybody here today. Like Lawrence pointed out, I'm the founding director of the Center for Leadership and Empowerment, at the only Center for Leadership and Empowerment in Greater Manchester, the first of its kind. And this is our second seminar. The first was a great one where we're looking at publishing, and today we'll be going into entrepreneurial leadership. But don't worry, we'll talk about that much later. But just more to welcome you, clearly, and it's great to have everybody here today, and hopefully you will have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Harrison, for that word of introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to talk briefly about Professor Harrison's biography profile. It's something that if I have to go through everything, probably it will take us another day or two. But probably I will focus on just the, just to give you a little bit of insight into his background and experience. Right. So, as you all know, Professor Christian Harrison is Professor of Leadership and Enterprise here at the University of Bolton. Prior to joining the University of Bolton, he was a reader in leadership and the chair of the Staff Forum for Research of the University of West of Scotland in the UK. He graduated with a first-class degree in pharmacy and practice as a pharmacist. Of course, assuming managerial positions before moving into the field of management. Professor Christian Harrison has an MBA and was the valedictorian of the University of Aberdeen Business School MBA class with a distinction. Okay. In addition, he also possesses a PhD in leadership and other postgraduate research and teaching qualification in his repertoire. Professor Harrison is a well-known and recognized scholar in the field of leadership and works across the globe on research projects. He's a recognized expert on leadership and provides regular expert media commentary on Scottish television news, Scotland Tonight, The Herald, The Conversation, Sunday Post, Guardian, Nigeria. He's very active in teaching, and is also a leader of a range of modules on leadership. He is also the author of numerous published research papers on leadership, which is his major research interest, and serves as the director of studies, first supervisor of several PhD and DBA students. He has successfully supervised several doctoral students to completion, and his current students are working on projects on authentic leadership, entrepreneurial leadership, transformational leadership, ethical leadership, and etc. He has also examined over 30 doctoral theses to date. Further, he is an active member of several learned organizations. He is a chair of the Leadership and Leadership Development Special Interest Group of the British Academy of Management. As chair, Professor Harrison fosters more dialogue in the domain of leadership and develops, alongside this, uplift in activity and research with the aim of bringing together the academic and practitioner experiences and viewpoints. He is the chair of the Academy for African Studies. As chair, Professor Harrison promotes and advocates for African scholarship and research. He's a fellow of the Institute of Business Administration and Knowledge Management. He's also an active member of the Institute for Small Businesses and Entrepreneurship, International Council for Small Businesses, Institute for Business Administration and Knowledge Management, Higher Education Academy, Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, National Institute of Food Science and Technology, and serves on several review panels and committees. He's an external examiner to other UK universities such as Hereward University, De Montfort University, and the University of Aberdeen. Professor Harrison is the editor of New Frontiers in African Business Society by Emerald Publishing. He's also the editor of Routledge Studies in Leadership and Leadership Development, Associate Editor-in-Chief of the International Journal of Business, Research, and Management, Associate Editor of the Humanities and Social Science Communication, and Review Editor of Organizational Psychology. Ladies and gentlemen, I think if I have to continue, I'll probably take another couple of days to finish. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome Professor Harrison to the stage to talk us through his very insightful and interesting presentation tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lawrence, for the very warm introduction. It's great to, of course, to have everybody here today, like I said, and I can see a lot of thumbs up. I know that is good. But either way, I think today it's about leadership. And last week we looked at publishing, but today we're looking at leadership in general. And this, of course, we know our center is the Center for Leadership and Empowerment. So in the next few minutes, I will be talking about leadership, not just leadership, but a new form of leadership that I call entrepreneurial leadership. The way I like to run my session, I don't believe I'm a sage on the stage. So I would do it in a different way, in saying that it would be like a workshop kind of setting. So I want you to also contribute to it. But I think that's the best way, because every time I do things of this nature, I always say that it's about us doing it together. And you will learn much more, especially when you're talking about leadership. You learn much more if you're able to contribute. So you don't need to wait until I've finished before you start asking me questions. No, I think we all have to work together. I always say leadership is about we and not me. So either way, so hopefully in the next few minutes, we'll be able to know much more about entrepreneurial leadership. So I will share my slides, and you can see Sarah. So thanks, Sarah, for joining. So let's see. Okay. I'm not able to share now. So Lawrence, maybe you give me sharing. I'm still not able to share. Let me see. Lawrence, I'm not able to share yet.
Are you able to do that now?
No, it's disabled. So if you give me sharing, if you give me multiple participants, it's not able to share. Okay, so now this of course is the slide, and entrepreneurial leadership, like I said, a skill-based analysis. So I'm looking at it from a different perspective. Like you already know, my name is Christian, Professor of Leadership, Director of the Center. I'm also the Chair of the British Academy of Management Leadership Group. That's my email and that's my Twitter, so you can follow me on Twitter. And also that's my LinkedIn handle as well. So today, the overview is that I'll be introducing myself. I won't talk so much about myself. I'll be providing a background about how entrepreneurial leadership emerged in the first place. Then looking at entrepreneurship, looking at leadership, looking at the approaches to entrepreneurial leadership, the focus on the skill perspective, conclusions, and references. So this is me. This was me like, how many years ago? Maybe like 8 or 8 years ago or something. So that was me. That was me 8 years ago. So I think I look young, isn't it? I tend to like this picture as well. I changed the picture from the one I had used earlier. But either way, so you can see one of the things that many people didn't know is I'm a pharmacist. So I used to be a pharmacist before I decided to go into nice academia. So, and one of, I think, Jibola here, of course, is a pharmacist as well. So I used to be a pharmacist before I decided to make my life very interesting. I stopped loving money and I decided, no, I don't want to make money as a pharmacist. Let me go into something more interesting. But during the pandemic, I was reminded by many of my colleagues how important pharmacy would be to me. But of course, no regrets. I moved from the industry. I think that's been very important to me. I became an academic, like you already know, and I've written a couple of papers and all that, advising many students to completion. Did a lot of things about within that range. And of course, I do a lot of consulting as well. But one of the things I really like about myself is the part that I tend to write. People say if you want to reach out to a great number of people, what do? You write a book. So I've written a couple of books on leadership, Africa, and all that. So I've done my own fair share of that beyond consulting as well. Then I'm also a humanitarian. I run an NGO as leadership mode. And the whole idea is to help develop the next group of leaders. I always say that if you want to change the world, then start with the youth. So I always support that generation and do a lot through my NGO to see how we can develop leadership in a nutshell. That is really me, and hopefully there'll be more feathers to that as we go along toward that space. So the background, when you think about entrepreneurial leadership, there are two things that come to your mind, isn't it? Entrepreneurship and leadership. For many of us, we know about entrepreneurship and we also know about leadership. Leadership has been something that has been there for ages. We talk about leadership. What does leadership mean? Although we look at that as we go along. A lot of people have defined leadership in different ways. But even with that, entrepreneurship is also a relatively new term as well. So although these two fields have fought with each other or have emerged either way, it still remains elusive. And it's just so much controversy about what entrepreneurship is and what leadership is. And that is one of the things that we need to have a clear idea about. So what is entrepreneurship in the first place? There are different ways entrepreneurship can be defined. And for many people, it cuts across different perspectives. Many of us know Schumpeter, and Schumpeter is the person that looks at entrepreneurship from an innovation perspective. And Schumpeter says, okay, yes, entrepreneurship is consists of doing things that are not generally done. So for him, an entrepreneur is somebody that's innovative. It makes sense, isn't it? But for some people, entrepreneurship is about creating a new organization. So I would have asked many of, or should I ask anybody, when you think about entrepreneurship, what comes to mind? Anybody that can just tell us amongst you. What is your stance on entrepreneurship? If you say you're an entrepreneur.
it's somebody who leads from the front, comes up with new ideas and takes things forward.
Okay,
takes
so
risks.
Martin believes that an entrepreneur is somebody that takes things forward, that leads from the front. Any other person? What do you think? Who do you think an entrepreneur is?
I would say
Yeah.
innovation.
Innovation, isn't it? So Andrew
Yeah.
is saying innovation. Okay. Any other person?
Okay.
Yeah,
This is
For
Jibola.
me,
Okay.
Okay.
Jibola.
I would say seeing opportunities and finding solutions for people's needs.
Seeing opportunities, finding solutions. Okay, that's Jibola's perspective. Great, Lawrence.
yeah, I think I echo what Jibola said. It's all about spotting opportunities where others cannot see
Okay,
those opportunities, but also coming up with creative and innovative ideas, providing solutions, yeah.
Good, well done, everybody. You can see that even amongst us here, we can't even agree totally on what entrepreneurship is. Some of you are saying innovation, some of you are saying recognizing opportunities. There are different ways that entrepreneurship has been defined. Initially, it used to be about running your business or starting a new organization. That's the Gartner's perspective. The likes of Shape and the latter ones that talk about entrepreneurship as being something or somebody that recognizes opportunities. There's even the perspective by Night that looks at it as an entrepreneur is somebody that takes risk. So there are different ways entrepreneurship has been viewed. So there is no wrong answer to how you can view entrepreneurship, but you're all correct. That's why some people even believe that for some people, there's even entrepreneurship where you can't, it is only that kind of mindset you can use within an organization. But that's, at least we all know what entrepreneurship is. But the next question is leadership. We know that entrepreneurship is there, and at least I provided that background. But another thing is leadership. What do we know about leadership? We know that leadership is the characteristic of all groups, not just the human group, but also the animal group as well. Even the animals have a leader. You will agree with me. Who is the leader of the animal kingdom? Who is the leader of the animal kingdom? Anybody?
Is
Well,
it based on
Donald
is it
Trump.
based on Animal Farm or is it based on the jungle? Which one?
Anybody? I will go.
So the lion.
The lion. Okay, why is the lion? I hope it's not because of Lion King or you watch so many Disney movies. That's why you think it's a lion.
Okay, so the lion, in a way, commands respect, I must say. He's goal-oriented. He's driven when he wants to hunt, or even the female lion when she wants to hunt. Very goal-driven, performance-driven, and is able to protect his pride with a lot of pride.
Okay, good, Jibola. Well, good one. Any other person?
If we want, if we can also say that whilst the lion is the king of the jungle, probably we'll say the eagle is the king of is the leader of the skies. Yeah.
Okay, Lawrence is saying the eagle. Okay, who else? Any other animal that you think is the leader of the animal kingdom?
Is the apex predator. Is the top of the food chain.
Okay, so you think it's the lion as well? Okay.
Well, oh no, it could be the ant or the amoeba.
Look, the funny part is I asked this question to a group of biologists, and guess the answer they gave me. And I asked this question. It was a CPD, and guess the answer they gave me. Just guess.
Biologists.
So maybe they said the bacteria.
Oh, no, I said you were close. They said the human beings. Humans are animals. So since humans are animals, humans should be the leader of the kingdom. But like, wow, it's true, isn't it? For so many people believe that humans are Homo sapiens. So I was like, okay, yeah, so that could also be an answer. And of course, some people have said, someone told me the ants recently. I think somebody said bacteria. So there are different ways you can view it. So there's no wrong answer. But I would want to go with what Lawrence, Jibola, and others have really said. The reason why the lion is called the king of the jungle, because the lion is the animal that is able to survive during the times of change. So, and that's why leadership is important, because you can see we are in a changing world. And although Heraclitus says that the only constant thing in the world is change, I always say that the only constant thing in the world is leadership, because leadership is key. You need leaders during the times of change. But that's even by the way. So it's a characteristic of all groups. In the human group, of course, we have leaders. In the military, we have leaders. In religion, we have leaders. Nations, countries, and states, we have leaders. In education, we have leaders. In businesses, we have leaders. In every sphere of life, we crave for leadership. Okay, those in the United Kingdom, who is our leader? Those in the United Kingdom, who is our leader? Who is our leader? Our prime minister, isn't it? Our prime minister is the leader. Those in America, of course, your president. So you have leaders in every sphere of life. But how do we define leadership in the first place? We looked at entrepreneurship. Now we're looking at defining leadership. I like a lot of you might know Peter Drucker. And there's a definition by Peter Drucker, and he says that the only definition of a leader is someone who has followers. And it makes sense to me. And it makes sense because by the end, you can't lead the sky. You need to lead people. So if you don't have people, then you're not a leader. Then you have definitions by Nothouse. You have by Lucian Altua. A lot of definitions. But I always say that leadership is one word, and leadership is influence. If you're able to influence people, then you're able to be a leader. Although there are different perspectives, and we're not going to go into that debate of different forms of leadership. But I always say that leadership is about influencing people. Learn how to influence people, then you'll be able to be a leader. But that's by the way. So now, both concepts have emerged. Entrepreneurship and leadership. So we're going into the main focus of what we're going to look at and the research. So I'm going to ask you a question. Are there similarities between both? I should have asked you, what is leadership, isn't it? Maybe that would have helped. What are the similarities between leadership and entrepreneurship? Anybody?
Yeah, I would think there's some similarity. I think leadership and entrepreneurship, I think both require vision.
Okay.
You know, vision, for example, the entrepreneur has to see things that others don't see, have to spot opportunity. But also with leadership, the leader has to have a vision in terms of where they want to move the organization or the country or the institution. You know, they have to have a vision of the future. They have to have some kind of direction, you know, of where they want to take the institution or maybe their department or the country, you know. So I think vision is one thing that cuts across both, but also the element of risk taking, I think, cuts across both. Leaders also have to make some really tough calls, tough decisions, you know. Yeah.
Good. Lawrence is telling us, or telling me now, that there are two similarities between an entrepreneur and a leader: vision and risk taking. Any other similarity that you think between both? Because that would help us to understand where we're heading to. Any other similarity between both?
Okay, so from my perspective, I would say both the entrepreneur and the leader, they are change agents.
Okay.
All right. They bring about change and they are able to influence their followers through that change to achieve a positive outcome. Now, the second thing I would like to talk about will be both of them as well. When it comes to business, they have a profitability mindset. That means they want to drive revenue up north and also make profits for the organization.
Okay, good, Jibola, as well. So their mindset is similar, and also they are change agents. So okay, so that at least we can see where they are: vision, risk taking, change agents. Any other similarity? Okay, let's move on. So you can see that there are similarities between both. And I totally agree. influence, vision, risk-taking, change. These are the things that you would expect an entrepreneur to do. And these are the things that you would expect a leader to do. That's why Velker in 2003 even went deeper to say that entrepreneurship is a type of leadership. That is very controversial, isn't it? He goes to say that there is nothing like entrepreneurship. It's just a type of leadership that's used within new venture creation. Not many people were happy with that article, but it just made you understand that there was so much in both of them. So we have to think about those, isn't it? So if we have leaders and have entrepreneurs, can you think of examples of leaders? Who are the leaders that come to your mind? We know there are similarities, but who are those leaders that you think? Can you mention leaders that you can think about? Any leader that you know? Effective leaders. I won't say good leaders, but good is subjective, isn't it? Effective leaders. Any examples for me? I told you that it was going to be a conversation. So example.
Yeah, perhaps people like Bill Gates, we can say.
Bill Gates, okay.
Leadership, yeah, he's a leader.
Bill Gates is a leader, okay. Any entrepreneur?
Okay, so let me say Aliko Dangote.
Aliko Dangote, the richest man in Africa, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so is he a leader or is he an entrepreneur?
So I will give him both. He's a leader. He's also an entrepreneur.
Okay, so Lawrence, Bill Gates, is he a leader or is he an entrepreneur?
I think they wear different hats depending on what they want, what role they are trying to, perform. I think Bill Gates can be considered a leader, can also be considered an entrepreneur. It depends on, what he is doing at every given point in time. So in one situation, he may be acting as a leader. In another situation, he spots an opportunity and, for making money and stuff like that. So yeah, he could be wearing different hats depending on the situation. Yeah, I will call him a leader, or I'll call him it could be both.
Okay, any other person? We have Bill Gates and we have Aliko Dangote. Any other person?
Yeah, you've got
Jeff
the last.
Bezos,
Okay.
founder of Amazon. Jeff
Jeff
Bezos.
Bezos. Okay, why Jeff Bezos?
Now, I was like, when Lawrence was mentioning about it, I was comparing two people actually, founder of Amazon and founder of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. I feel based on what I've read, like Jeff Bezos is a very good entrepreneur, while Mark Zuckerberg will be like have both skills. He's an entrepreneur, but he also have a very good leadership skills.
Okay, so it's good. I think Sarat is telling us we have Jeff Bezos. Of course, we know Jeff Bezos, the head of Amazon, and we know how Amazon has been so massive. So you feel he falls into an entrepreneur and also leader. But great, we won't waste so much time with that. But why do you think I'm asking you about these examples? Apart from the fact that I always like to put people on the spot. But why do you think I'm asking you about these examples? What do you think is the reason for asking you for the examples?
Because I think it's very difficult to choose a leader who doesn't have that entrepreneurial flair. Now, would you see a real, entrepreneur who doesn't possess some form of leadership skill? I think both terminologies are quite fluid and overlap, and you find people wearing different, So a leader and entrepreneur, probably very difficult to separate, to draw a line.
Okay, so that's what Lawrence is saying. Any other person? Why do you think I'm telling you to name examples of leaders and entrepreneurs?
I think in my case, I'll give an example for Sir Richard Branson, the owner of Virgin Group. You can actually see how he started his business and where that business is now. If you look at the literature, or maybe if you put that on Google, you actually see that he owns about 400 different companies. And he started having that ambition when at a younger age. But he has managed to grow those businesses. So that means he was creative enough. He was able to maybe develop his staff, the training them, So we talk about the innovation here, thinking outside the box to say how can he, increase maybe performance of his business and performance of employees, and for the benefit of the organization of the business itself, that is. So we're looking at the creativity being a leader. So I would just say that Sir Richard Branson, owner of Virgin Group, would be a very good example in that respect.
Okay, good. I'm just giving us Richard Branson as a great example. So there are many examples. We just go. So most of the time, these are the kind of examples that tend to come to mind. Richard Branson, Andrew rightly pointed out, and Mark Zuckerberg, one of you said Facebook. Those are kind of leaders that tend to come when I talk about it. But of course, some people mention Hitler as well as a good example of a leader. You can't take away Hitler, isn't it? A lot of people had to wear the Hitler's mustache, and he was able to influence people to that kind of level. Then you have the likes of Obama and so. But the reason why I told you to give me examples of leaders and entrepreneurs is because of the way you view leadership will determine the kind of examples you give. The way you view entrepreneurship will determine the kind of examples you give. If you view leadership as being somebody that identifies opportunities, that runs strong businesses, then the kind of examples of Richard Branson will come to mind. If you view leadership as being about communication, then the likes of Obama will come to mind. So it is a way, and that's why really in the scholarly literature, we tend to argue that there is no wrong answer, because it is always your view that will determine the examples you give. But that's good. So now, entrepreneurial leadership. And this is where we came into the space. So, of course, I'm one of the forerunners within the space of entrepreneurial leadership. Of course, I'm not the first to look at entrepreneurial leadership. I wish I was. But it's a paradigm that tries to merge both leadership and entrepreneurship. And you tend to see that for many of us that look at leadership research, we have different types of leadership. We have transformational leadership. You have transactional leadership. You have distributed leadership. You have servant leadership. I was talking to a colleague today, and now we're looking at innovation leadership. There's also crisis leadership. There's design leadership. There's so many forms of leadership. But we in this space, what we say is that, and you can see what's happening in the world today. We are faced with turbulence. We are faced with complexity. And many people have said, including I, that we need a leadership that is entrepreneurial. Because in the time of crisis, in the time of complexity and turbulence, you need somebody that has an entrepreneurial mindset. So although people have looked at it from different perspectives, and we'll be looking at that very soon, but the whole idea is merging both. As a leader, you need to be entrepreneurial. So that is the whole idea. But this form of leadership has become so popular in the 21st century, and there have been so many definitions on entrepreneurial leadership. So just like we said before, it emerged from an intersection. So this was the first way it was looked at. So early research, what they did was, okay, what are the characteristics of an entrepreneur? What are the characteristics of a leader? Of course, many times they should be able to motivate. Leadership is about influence. So motivating others is something that is important as a leader. For entrepreneurs, the same thing, but not as important compared to leaders. Achievement orientation. Entrepreneurs are usually achievement orientated. Leaders as well. Being creative. 10, 5. So what these people did, they looked at an intersection of literature on leadership and entrepreneurship. Flexible. So what they did is all the characteristics that were similar, they said those are the characteristics of an entrepreneurial leader. So they looked at it from different perspectives. So these are the characteristics. That's the 8 of them. Being able to motivate, being achievement orientated, being creative, being flexible, being patient, being persistent, taking risk, and being visionary. Like Lawrence, but you must have seen this article already, because most of the things you said are the kind of things that Coglisa and Bremen and also Fennard had in mind. So these were the people that initially came up with that perspective as an intersection of both concepts. But my perspective, because what many people said in the earlier perspectives has been, okay, this is leadership by entrepreneurs. So only entrepreneurs can be entrepreneurial leaders. That was the initial perspective. So those that run their business, the way they lead, they're called entrepreneurial leaders. But I have defined entrepreneurial leadership as a type of leadership that's capable of identifying and exploiting opportunities in an entrepreneurial environment. So this is a type of leadership that can be used and adopted by anybody. So it can be used in schools. I've had PhD students over the years that have looked at it within the SMEs, within Scotland, within different sectors. So what we are trying to propose here is that entrepreneurship is a mindset. And as a leader, you need to be able, this is a type of leadership that is important, especially within a very dynamic environment. But that is my definition. That was 5 years ago. But other people have defined it in different ways. You have Renko that defined it as directing and influencing group members towards achieving organizational goals and recognizing entrepreneurial opportunities. There are many ways. So there's so many. Sylvia and Ashley, they come up with innovation. It's a type of leadership that looks at innovation. So they're trying to combine both. But we all agree that it's usually within an uncertain environment or an entrepreneurial environment. Claire Leach in Lancaster defines it as, again, as, for her, really, it's entrepreneurial ventures rather than an entrepreneurial style of leadership. So everybody has the way that they try to define theirs. So Ireland also defines it in a different way as well. But there are different approaches to entrepreneurial leadership. So although I'm discussing about my research, one of the things that I was able to look at clearly is before you can look at something, you need to look at how other people have done it before. I always tell my colleagues and also my students, for you to be able to publish something, then you need to identify the gap. So there are different approaches to entrepreneurial leadership. The first approach, like I told you initially, was a convergence of both, where people looked at it as two different concepts and where they meet. Some people have looked at it based on the context, saying, okay, it is about the new venture. It is a type of leadership that has to be done within entrepreneurial ventures or within new organizations. Some have taken the trait approach to entrepreneurial leadership. They have looked at the attributes. It's almost similar to what Coglisa and Fenner did. What are the characteristics of entrepreneurial leaders? Some have gone through a theoretical approach to entrepreneurial leadership, just talking about entrepreneurial leadership and providing theories surrounding it. Some have looked at it as comparing it with other forms of leadership, like transformational leadership, transactional leadership. Some have looked at it with values. Some people say that entrepreneurs can't have values. Some have examined it based on values. Some have looked at it based on education. What we're looking at is the skills approach. And some people have looked at it based on skills, some gender, and also performance. So these are the approaches to entrepreneurial leadership that have been examined over the years. But I always say that I'm not a fan of the trait approach, because I always strongly believe that leadership is about, well, of course, it's a debate about nature and nurture. And I always say that you need to look at the nurture perspective, because at the end, you need to be able to develop that skill set. And for me, entrepreneurial leadership skills is where I've been able to put my niche or put my expertise, because I strongly believe that you can become an entrepreneurial leader. And that's the whole idea of this workshop or this seminar today. So the difference between trait and skill is that unlike the traits, you can't change who you are. When a person about trait perspective. So it means that if you're not born that way, you cannot be a leader. It means you're wasting your time coming for this seminar. Or no matter what I tell you, Sabbath can never be an entrepreneurial leader. But the whole idea is for you to be able to develop that skill set about entrepreneurial leadership. And that is all what my research over the years has been about. So now let me just give you a spotlight on one of the studies I conducted 7 years ago. And it's the whole idea, and I can confidently say that I was the first person to develop a skill-based framework on entrepreneurial leadership. Because I was going with the idea that you should be able to develop entrepreneurial leaders. So of course, for many of us that are researchers here, you need to do a scoping study. So I conducted a scoping study of entrepreneurial leadership. That was how I was able to look at those different perspectives that I told you about. And I did the literature review, clearly. and try to, and I've done it, of course, I do a lot of workshops on conducting a systematic literature review. So I've been able to publish different systematic literature reviews on entrepreneurial leadership, where to tell you the kind of gap that we have. But more importantly, I was also able to, but I will talk much more about it as we go along. But this was the research design, did the qualitative study and modeled entrepreneurial leadership. Now, clearly, how did I conduct my study? The first, when I developed the skills-based approach to entrepreneurial leadership, after the literature review, and I was able to look at the gap and know that the skills part of entrepreneurial leadership has not really been examined, I took an interpretivist and constructionist philosophy. Many of us know what that means. It looks like it from a subjective perspective. So rather than going through a positive approach, I wanted to understand the lived experience of these entrepreneurial leaders in the first place. I took a quantitative approach to it, although I know mixed methods, but previous studies had always taken a very positive approach to entrepreneurial leadership. So I decided to take a quantitative approach, and I conducted semi-structured interviews. Not surprising, and that was why I told you my background. I'm a pharmacist. So I used retail pharmacy entrepreneurs for my study and their employees. So I did interviews with them. It was even in Nigeria. I conducted this when I did the research then. So I selected the participants. I had, of course, a guide or a selection criteria that time. So I had 51 interviews of 51 people that were involved in it. The interview protocol was based on my expertise on entrepreneurial leadership. And the 51 interviewees, we are 17 were entrepreneurs, or what I call entrepreneurial leaders, and 2 employees each. So every retail entrepreneur had an employee. And the reason why I did it that way was to ensure that I was able to triangulate, because many times leaders are usually the most, they always exaggerate their abilities. So sometimes you really want to know the truth. Oh, I'm fantastic. Oh, I'm empathetic. Oh, I'm great. But when you ask their employees, it's always the other way around, isn't it? So in order to ensure that the work had credibility, I was able to get 17 entrepreneurs and 2 employees each. And of course, based on that, I did a thematic analysis of those interviews. So it took some time. I can talk much more about that if you have questions about it. But this is about the sample interview quotes that emerged while I was doing the analysis. And this was, you can see with H2, this is an employee saying she communicates effectively. You can't tell me that you don't understand what she's saying. She has good communication skills. So one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to tease out the entrepreneurial leadership skills that these people have. So you can see that one of them was saying she communicates well, while the entrepreneur was saying, I recognize opportunities in the industry. I'm able to see the trend and draw a strategy to harness and help with that position. So some of them also said, people look up to me. So these were some of his interview quotes. But when you go to the paper, I published this paper in 2016. That was like, was it 18? I can't remember. 16 was part of the, when I published the first paper from this. That was like 7 years ago as well. So you can look at the paper. But so these are some of the interview quotes that emerged from the study. And it led me to develop a taxonomy of entrepreneurial leadership skills. So this is the taxonomy, and I published this taxonomy in 2018. So based on the research, I was able to tease out these skills as being key for entrepreneurial leaders. For me, and they are 4 main skills. First is interpersonal skills. These entrepreneurial leaders, they know how to relate with people. They know how human skills are important. And in doing that, they had empathy. They understood how people work. They understood how they could relate with people. They were compassionate. They were caring. And empathy is very, very important, especially in today's world as well. Communication and listening was one of the skill sets that emerged from my research. One of the things I was able to know is that it's not a one-way thing. Communication is a two-way thing. You have to listen as well. So it's not just about talking, listen to people. So there were times whereby people said, oh yes, this person listened to me. I didn't even know that she was listening. I didn't even know that he was talking, but he did something that made me know that he listened. So as an effective entrepreneurial leader, communication and listening was very key. Motivating was great. And one of the things that I noticed was they didn't just motivate with material things. They motivated with their lives. They led by example. They were role models. They were the ones. There was a particular entrepreneur that was always the first to get to work. At one point, one of them even said, I saw she was wearing the same thing that she wore yesterday. So it meant that she slept at work. And those things motivated the employees to work harder. So they were able to lead by examples. They were great team builders. They were able to build teams. Like I always say, leadership is not about me, but it's about we. So they knew that they had to work together. They were able to manage people and develop people as well. Several examples of sending people for trainings because they felt that it was important that they were able to make a mini Christian or a mini Sarah or a mini Widya in themselves. But one thing that I also noticed is self-management. As an entrepreneurial leader, you can't lead people if you don't know how to manage yourself. So you need to know how to manage yourself. So these people were self-aware. They knew their strengths and their weaknesses. They knew those that they needed to employ in order to address those weaknesses. And they knew how to work with their strengths. Conceptual skills were also things that emerged from my study. And I always say these for the CPDs I run. As entrepreneurial leaders, you need to be analytical. So I know these are things that scientists tend to do a lot, but you need to be able to make decisions based on facts. So they were meticulous with the data. They were looking at what people were saying and before they made decisions. They were generating fantastic ideas as well. So they knew what people couldn't really see. So they always thought, okay, what's the next big thing? And that was important in getting them to where they were. They were able to solve problems. Many of them would tell you, don't tell me the problems, give me the solution. So they were problem solvers. And that is so important in leadership and entrepreneurial leadership. You need to be able to solve problems. I was telling a lot of people, most of the people that were able to succeed during the pandemic are those that were able to solve problems. Solve a problem, then automatically you would have massive influence. And problem solving was key. And visioning was important. They were visionary. People, they could see what people could not see. And they had a dream, that, like Martin Luther would always say. But even in doing that, they also knew how to plan. So they were strategic planners. And I always tell people, if you have a vision or if you have a dream and you don't know how to plan, then just be a daydreamer. So they knew how to achieve their dreams for their organization. And they were decisive. They made decisions. They knew when to make decisions. And that is very important. Sometimes they were not the best decisions, of course, but they took responsibility. They had technical expertise in what they were doing. They were best in their domains. And that's one of the things that you would normally see in leadership. They understood their business as well. And that is important. Entrepreneurial skills was also important in the skill set. They were able to identify opportunities, exploit them, and also take risk. They were not gamblers, but they were able to take calculated risk. And these are the things that were important. If you look at the pandemic, some people were going bust, while some people were identifying opportunities. One of you mentioned Jeff Bezos. Amazon was so successful during the pandemic because of the entrepreneurial leadership mindset of Jeff Bezos. So this was my taxonomy, to be fair. And I've used this taxonomy over the years, presented it, used it to do a lot of trainings, worked with the Scottish government, done a lot of things for other people with this CPD. So my role is, how can I ensure that you're able to develop this leadership skill set that I've been able to come or establish? So this is the entrepreneurial leadership model I also published years ago as well. So it has the skill sets. I always say that there are different challenges that would inform the skill set. And there are also conditions as well. So family, culture, follower, resources, experience, those things tend to affect how you're able to use the skill set. The developing economic context was also important. Like I told you, it was established within Nigeria, that's a developing economy. Then based on that, these entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial leaders were able to show business commercialization, management creation, and more importantly, they had a very successful business, and that is important going forward. So what I really want us to do is, okay, so I've got to listen, okay, thanks. So what I really want us to do, I want us to look, because I've used this skill set over time, and I want us to just look at, try to fill this in, the skill assessment. So I don't know whether it's, I could put it on the chart, so that will make it easier for people to, so I'll put it on the chart, and let's see, so try to complete it. I know we don't have, okay, we only have like 36 minutes left, isn't it? So I think I want to take some questions. So I put it on the chart there. So this is this. So based on that, I want you to be able to try to see and answer those questions there. So does everybody have access to the chart?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, great. So I put it in there. So just maybe if you can do that in the next 2-3 minutes, nothing to, just for us to see what I was talking about. So, okay, Mike is saying, yes, you can see that, good. So I think you can, this is what's going to come out, isn't it? So you can see this. So this was one of the multi-dimensional constructs that I produced as well. So with that, you're able to assess your skill set. So just, I know we don't have so much time, so if you can do that in 2-3 minutes, that will just show you. But and the whole idea is for you to be honest about it. Because by being honest about your skill set, it makes it easy for you to be able to know how to address it. So if you know, okay, yes, this is, you set high standard of performance for yourself, and you're able to, so it's just not so many questions really. So strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly agree, and okay, so we have 3 minutes left. Finish your, okay. If you're finished, I meant to see it, isn't it? Done. Okay, so it means that I need to add responses, not sure.
You might need to refresh it again.
I need to refresh it, isn't it? I might need to refresh it, you're right. Let me see. Go to my phone. So you keep feeling. So let me, so you, see why I can't see your, maybe it's a technical issue. So how many people have finished? Finished, done. Okay. Let me put this in here. So maybe it might be this. Is it the same? If we try to fill this link, I put a link there as well. So let's see whether it's because this is not showing what I needed to show. So if we can just want to try that out, the other link, let's see. The other link, I think yes, now it's coming. So that's great. So now it's coming. So it's good. So I'll share my screen again. Okay, so we have one response. For whatever reason, I think that link just didn't work. Okay, so apologies. 2 responses. Okay, we have 2 responses now. Three responses. Okay. We have 3 people that responded. So either way, but the whole idea is for people. So when you see that, okay, I know we're running out of time, so maybe so you can see the responses here. For many of us, okay, we now have 4 people. So for many of us, we strongly agree that we set high standards for ourselves. Some of us agree, so that's great. I'm so happy that many of us are there. We see that in articulating the clear vision and imagination, for many of us, okay, now it's changing, more people. Many of us are neutral, or some people strongly agree, and some people agree. For creating plans, we have more people, so that's good. The same thing here, you take risk and promote an environment. Many people are neutral, and some people strongly agree. You make decisions firmly and quickly, so we have 50-50 here. You motivate others to achieve goals. This is quite neutral, and this is a lot of people that strongly agree here. Induce members to work together. You negotiate effectively, 50-50. You provide creative results, solutions to problems. Empathy, wow, 50-50 as well. You realize and exploit market opportunities. You exploit new and existing ones. You communicate effectively. Radical improvements. You're interested in your self-development. Okay, 50-50 here, 33 points. You're adept in use of technology, adept at business management. In-depth knowledge of the methods and of the organization. You believe in role modeling and lead by example. Wow, it's interesting, isn't it? For many people that answered this, nobody disagrees. Everybody is either neutral or they agree or strongly agree. But these are the kind of things you expect. But it's only useful to you when you're really honest with yourself. But this is just trying to make you understand what I've been doing and what I've been able to do as we go along. Well, of course, it's great. I'm happy that we have seen some of this. But when you now feel that, the next thing is, what can I do to ensure that I'm more empathetic? What can I do to ensure I'm adept in the use of technology? So it's more of self-awareness. So when you know that these are the things that you fall short of, how can I address them? And that is the whole idea of the skill assessment that I have tried to show you today. But of course, I tend to use it in a more elaborate way, but we don't have so much time for that today. So in conclusion, really, one of the things that we need to do is, okay, I came up with a skill set. Okay, Titus, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask a. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, I was just going to ask a quick question. And the question is this: do you think that the way you've ordered the questions could have also impacted on people's responses? For example, when you started with strongly agree, maybe if you tweak it the other way around to start with strongly disagree, there could be a tendency that maybe the result might be a bit different. Because I mean, for me, it was just more like strongly agree. So you were just ticking the boxes, if you know what I mean. But that was just a perspective, my own perspective to it. Yeah,
I totally agree with you, Titus. And that's one of the things about when you use surveys or questionnaires. Most of the time, these are the kind of bias you would always feel, and you always tend to look at. Of course, it could be positive or it could be negative. But you're right, and I'm happy that you stated that, because some people might think, oh yes, that they're expected to agree. Some people might also feel like, and sometimes people don't like to disagree with anything. So that could also be a factor. But I always tell people before I tell them to do the skill assessment, be truthful to yourself. You have to be truthful. And that's one of the ideal things about an entrepreneurial leader. You need to be truthful. So regardless of the fact that maybe you think is strongly agree, but if you look at the 5, okay, yes, where do I really fall? But I totally agree that sometimes this could also be a factor. But either way, how do you develop entrepreneurial leadership skills? It's so important that we know the skill sets. We know that these are the things. So what do you need to do next? I always tell people that most of the time, mentoring is very important. So get a mentor. If you want to be a great entrepreneurial leader, get somebody that will mentor you, either formal or informal. These things tend to help. Formal mentoring, research has shown that formal mentoring is important. Even informal mentoring. I have a couple of people that I mentor formally and informally, and that those things are very important, especially as an entrepreneurial leader. You know, people that have been successful, get to work with them. Entrepreneurial leadership training programs are important as well. I always, most of these things, like if you want to know, if empathy is what you struggle with, then you might want to go for courses that address that. If it's about communication, then go on communication courses. For many universities and even within the center, because I always talk about the center, one of the things that we tend to do is to help develop your entrepreneurial ability. So we do a lot of leadership training programs based on our research to show you how you can be a better leader. Personal growth activities are also important. So you need to read, watch programs on leadership, read about leadership. Of course, books other scholars have written as well are important. But I always say practice is important. Practice makes perfect. If you want to be a great entrepreneurial leader, start leading. Don't be afraid to fail. Failure is not a bad thing. Fail forward. Because as an entrepreneurial leader, you can't learn how to lead if you don't practice. And that is important. So the conclusion, I know I've spent time talking about this. There are 3 questions everyone who aspires to be an entrepreneurial leader should ask themselves. First, does personality matter? What do you guys think? Yes or no? Yes, does it? Does it matter how an individual behaves? And do I need to develop my entrepreneurial leadership skills? Yes, yes, and yes. So thank you very much. And please feel free to ask me any questions.
Wow, thank you so much, Professor Harrison, for that very insightful and enriching, intellectually stimulating presentation. Right, so now it's time for Q&A. Feel free to ask your questions. If you have any questions, by all means, you can raise your hand, unmute yourself, and just ask, or you can as well type your questions in the chat box, and I'll read that to Professor Harrison. So, yeah, time for questions. Okay, I think Widya is very eager and willing to ask a question. Over to you, Widya.
Hello. I was thinking that it was between the entrepreneurships and leadership. It was like a contradict aim, to be honest, if we all talking in the practical way. When people had the entrepreneurial mindset, then they're more likely to thinking about the profit rather than human relations. And when we were thinking about the leadership, the leader should be more or the orientation should be more in between in human relations. So I think in the practical way, in the business or in the organization, I think it's very hard to find people or to build the capacity to have a balance between the entrepreneurial mindset and the leadership skill. So in your experience, Prof. Christian, so how to balance between these two different things, and how we can know that not all people is really leader people, but they have entrepreneurial ideas or they are more creative and innovative. Which one do you prefer, or is it like two things must to have, but it's is it like too good to be true, or what is your experience in the field? That was my curiosity. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Widya, for that. And I like that question, because the truth is, for every leadership approach, like when I of course talk to my students or colleagues or present, I'm not saying that there's always a shortcoming to every approach. And it's clear that there are different ways you can approach entrepreneurial leadership. Some people would say, and that's always the debate about, oh, when you're entrepreneurial, does it mean that, like you rightly pointed out, if you're entrepreneurial, that means you're more profit mind, you have a profit mindset, and if you're entrepreneurial, I mean, you can't really think about other people. A lot of people have come up with that perspective, and that's why I said a lot of people even feel that entrepreneurs cannot have values. Like, in order for you to be able to maximize profits, you need to be able to, you don't need to have integrity. People say all that. And for me personally, and this is my personal and also really based on research, looking at the profit mentality, you can't go too far in the long term if you always feel that as an entrepreneur, it's all about making profits. So you need to think about other people. People are important. In the short term, all right, values might not matter to you. But in the long term, now we have a very different kind of population. We have a different group of people. Some people are not really keen about money. Some people need leaders that they can really align with, leaders that have integrity. So the whole idea of entrepreneurs just being there for themselves is an old mindset, because it might work in the short term, but in the long term, no. That's why I always say an entrepreneurial what makes entrepreneurial leadership quite distinct from other forms of leadership, like transformational and transactional and all that, is that opportunity recognition and exploitation, and also being able to take risk, is the forefront of leadership. So I think that is what I always try to push. And beyond that, I always tell people as well that because you're an entrepreneurial leader, you also need to have other skills. So it's not just about identifying opportunities or taking risks. These are the skills that entrepreneurial leaders should have. Like I said initially, entrepreneurial leadership is a mindset. Is it possible for everybody to have all the skills that I mentioned? No, it's not. But that's why within your sector, within your area, you should know what is important for me at this moment. Because at the end, you might be working in the university, and you know that, okay, yes, at the moment, for me, this is not, communication is great, but maybe I need to learn about communicating, or maybe risk-taking is my thing I have to learn. So you need to be able to know the ones you need to improve yourself. And entrepreneurial leaders, sometimes they know that they can't do all, so they get people. And that's why I say people management and development is important. you also need to be able to get people to support you. But within the world today, what we have noticed is that these entrepreneurial leaders are the ones that are able to change our world. But another conversation is entrepreneurial leadership. Is it feasible in every context? A lot of people have said might not be, but that's why I've been trying to do research beyond the business. I've done it within SMEs. I did it within the oil and gas sector. So, and it has shown that entrepreneurial leadership is really important beyond the normal business sector. Does it answer your question, Vidya?
Yeah, it's answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Professor Harrison. I think Jibola has a question. Over to you, Jibola, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Lawrence. So mine is not really a question, but an add-on to Widya and the response to Prof's to Lydia's question. So my thought about what she asked also is about what they call the triple bottom line. And this simply means how organizations or companies are able to look at profit making, the impact on people, and also the impact on the planet. So in a way, while trying to make profits or while having profitability on the front burner, they're also looking at ways in which they can impact people generally around them, those working for them, direct employees, or even people in the society, as well as how their business is also affecting the environment. So having their business strategy ab initio as a part of their vision and plan, they may be able to inculcate being an entrepreneur and also having that leadership mindset to drive the organization. And that way they can impact people and also they have profits at the back of their minds. That may be a connecting line for such businesses.
Thank you. But I think that's fantastic. I like the fact that you align with the triple P's as well. So profit, people, and planet. I think Lawrence has also put in there as well. So it's not bad to have the profit mindset. And of course, at the end, it's all about trying to align with people. And even regardless of being profit orientated, it's still, you can't achieve much without people and also thinking about the planet. So I think it's definitely a good addition to what we are trying to talk about as well. So thanks, Jibala, for adding that. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I just, towards the concluding part of your presentation, Prof, you talked about personality. You did make reference to personality. You asked whether personality matters. And your response to that question was, yes, it does. So would you like to tell us a little bit in terms of what kind of personality traits or attributes?
Thank you very much, Lawrence, for that. And what I meant was, at the end, although I clearly stated that skills are very, of course, we should look at skills, but the truth is that also your attributes, they also matter. The character of a leader is important. So going beyond the skill set is important as a leader, that the attributes, the traits, those things are important in leadership. So if you look at it's not just the skills, the way you behave as a leader is important. What the leaders possess are important. And the skill sets is also important. Those three key, and that's why that's the traditional paradigm to leadership from the beginning. People look at traits, people look at skills, and people look at behavior. So those three things would always be fundamental to leadership. So that's what I meant.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I think I wanted to say something else. You talked about, is it ethics? No, I'm not sure. Anyway, I'll think about it.
If there are no questions, we can of course, we can. Okay, so either way, thank you very much. If there are no questions, then of course.
Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Okay. So, right, I would like to use this opportunity to thank everyone for, taking part in this second edition of our seminar series. And a massive vote of thanks to Professor Harrison for, sharing this very exciting, insightful, enriching presentation with the rest of us. I think I've learned a great deal from this presentation, and I'm pretty sure those in attendance will echo the same sentiment. So thank you so much, Professor Harrison, for taking this time up. I'm sure the logical thing for anyone to do, given that you've not been feeling well, would have been to cancel this session. But you went against all odds to say, no, you're going to do it. So we are really grateful for that. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise and experience and knowledge with all of us. Thank you very much. Would you like to say something before we wrap up for the day?
First, thanks very much, Lawrence, for this, and thank you for facilitating the session. It's been great, and thanks everybody for attending. Like I said, from the feedback from the session, it looks like we enjoyed it, and it was great to have everybody here. So thanks for joining. I know it's Christmas, isn't it? So it's always a good time. And we have more seminars. So I know it's the end of the year. We're going to have more seminars in January. So watch our space, and we'll have much more to come. So thanks everybody. And from my side, and on behalf of the Center for Leadership and Empowerment, I would like to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year when it comes. We're going to be running a leadership conference next year as well. So just, of course, that would be, the call for submissions are out. And that's the 14th Developing Leadership Capacity Conference, an international conference. So please join that conference as well. So you get to hear much more about it on our social media and website as well. And we'll have a formal launch of the center on the 20th of March. So June 24th and 25th is a leadership conference. So please, if you want to know much more about leadership, of course, you need to join us. By the way, on behalf of the center, thank you so much. And thanks, Lawrence. And thanks everybody here. I can't start mentioning all the names, but it's great you were here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a merry festive season and a fantastic new year. So keep an eye on our social media links for updates on future sessions. Thank you very much, and bye for now.